A lovely good morning and welcome to the Camnet Breakfast Show Tuesday edition, where we focus on community. And interesting enough, I'm not alone in the studio. I'm your usual host, Patrick Soko, but my co-host, Miriam Kaimba. I don't know if she's still having a positive Tuesday or she has changed her mind.
No, I haven't changed my mind. I will not change my mind for anything. It's a positive Tuesday. It's a positive day. I've always tried to, to ensure that my day started at a positive note, because Patrick, believe me, immediately you wake up and say that prayer and you put any negative thought in your mind, trust me, you will not achieve what you want for that particular day, because you've already, accompanied your thought with negativity. But if you put that positive energy toward what you want on that particular day, trust me, you're going to get it. So every single day, it's a positive day for me, just like it was a positive Monday, it's a positive Tuesday. And I hope our viewers out there are having a positive morning. It's quite important.
Wow, we are still spreading a positivity here on the Camnet Breakfast Show, and regardless of our troubles or our challenges we are facing, we have to remain optimistic and ensure that we start the day on a bright note. Let us always remember that life is short. You don't know what tomorrow holds, so you have to live today as if it is your last day, and make sure that you do all the positive things, and make sure that you serve God, your Lord, and make sure that at the end of the day, whatever happens, you should be able to be on the right side of everything.
You sound like a preacher. Are you trying to be a papa or something? But anyway, we shall continue. Please, by right about now, let's go and let's get into our health corner and just see what the doctors have for us this morning.
Good morning. My name's Dr. Rafat Basit Masa. I'm coming from Medical Women's Association of Zambia, MWAS. I'm working in University Teaching Hospital as a general surgeon. Yesterday we had a very exciting topic which we talked about burns. We talked about burns, we talked about introduction of burns, we talked about types of burns, we talked about the superficial types of burns, the burns which are a little bit deeper, and the really deep burns. So we've been talking about burns, and we're going to talk about burns this whole week because it's a very, very important topic, and we have noticed that we have a lot of people who are suffering from burns, accidents. It's quite devastating to lose people which we can actually avoid to lose them, Yesterday we talked about classification of burns, we talked about causes of burns, we talked about what causes burns. So we talked about fire causing burns, we talked about porridge causing burns, hot water, especially most 90% burns take place majority of the time is at home during household works, and a lot of burns, we end up causing burns to our little innocent children, which we can avoid it. It's very, very sad to see our children going through these burns. Why should they go through these burns when we can protect them? And the saddest part is that when we see them go through the burns, some children, we actually lose them, which we are not supposed to lose children. We are supposed to look after them. We are supposed to ensure they are away from these household works. When you're cooking, make sure, please keep your children away. When you're bathing your children, please make sure that your water is not so hot. It's warm enough for you to actually bath the child, because a lot of times you find that you have filled up your bathtub with so much water which is really hot, and then you put your child without even testing that if that water is really hot or not, and that's how you end up burning the child. So please make sure that you avoid some of these things. So today we are going to talk about the symptoms of burns. So symptoms of burns, meaning what are the things that you need to look out for when you have burns. For example, if you have been burned, so please ensure that you stop doing whatever you're doing. Stop if there is fire in your house, if there is anything that has caught fire in your house. Ensure that if you are getting burned, stop, drop on the floor and roll. Make sure that the moment you get burned, that is for high burns. But if you're cooking and, for example, you just suddenly got burnt with fire or something really hot, please ensure that you don't apply anything in there. Just go into the basin straight. Try to wash your hands for 20 minutes with normal room temperature water. You don't need to put hot water or cold water or any kind of water. Just put room temperature water, run it through your hand or any part of your body that has just been burned, and make sure that it runs for about 20 minutes. After that, please ensure that you go to your nearest health care. Do not we have noticed that people try to apply toothpaste, then certain traditional powders, chemicals. So please ensure that do not apply anything on that burn wound, and go to your nearest health care, and they will provide you the accurate type of burns that you have got and how to go about it and how to look after it. They will tell you how to do it. So when it comes to symptoms, again, we come to the types of burns we talked about yesterday. One of them was really superficial burns. So in superficial burns, it's more like a sunburn. It's more like quite superficial. It just burns part of your skin, which is superficial. So on that burn, when you go to the nearest health care, the symptoms you're going to feel really, it's really painful, and it becomes red, and it's very, very painful. So hence people end up applying, I have noticed that a lot of people apply Colgate there, thinking that it will cool it down, but it's actually causing more harm to your wound. So what you need to do is just go to your nearest health care. In there, they are going to provide some sort of creams for you and how to clean the wounds for you, and your wounds are going to heal within 7 to 14 days if you follow the accurate protocols that you've been told by your health care. Then the second type of burns, unfortunately, that is quite deep. It forms blisters. It actually also goes slightly beyond the skin as well, deeper than the skin. So that burn is also very painful. It happens with also the same, like hot water, fire, hot oil, chemicals. In chemicals, we have two types of chemicals. We have acids and we have alkalines. So you find the ones which have been burned with alkalines are even more damaging, because it damages it takes a few days for it to damage. So it actually damages more of that area. So even in there, you'll find the symptoms. You'll find, for example, the patient will be so much in pain. Then the patient will not feel like moving the limb or the area that has been burned. Then the patient will lose a lot of fluids, because remember, your skin protects your whole body. It's the largest organ in your body, considered as the largest organ in your body. So you find that when you have skin loss, there's a lot of fluid that is coming out. So you find you find yourself getting very dehydrated, and so you need to seek immediate healthcare help. You need to go to the hospital. Do not apply anything in there. When you have gone through the burns, immediately wash yourself for 20 minutes. Prepare yourself, find transport, and go to the nearest health care, and you will be admitted there. They are going to look after your wounds and discuss the management, how you will be managed. So the second degree burns actually take a bit of time for it to heal, because it has caused quite a good amount of destruction into your body. So it takes a bit of time, and also totally it depends on the percentage. If it's a high percentage, then it takes a bit of time for you to heal, and for you to be completely in full form, it will take a bit of time. As I said, some of these things can be avoided just by taking precautions. Then the last type of burns, that is the third degree, that is really, really deep, and that's very devastating, because it actually damages your bones, your muscles, very deep inside. Sometimes even your organs, it can go through your organs, especially electrical burns. Please ensure that sockets and electrical plugs are your children away from those things. Make sure that you keep your children away from these open sockets, and keep yourself also away from these open sockets, because these electric shocks may be very dangerous to an extent that they may actually damage a lot of organs that we may not be able to do anything about it. So prevention is better than getting the cure. So ensure that you keep all these away from children, because when you get those deep burns, actually your symptoms will be like you'll have no feelings on your body, on that part of the body. If you have been burned on that area, it's going to look very white, it's going to be very deep. Whenever someone touches it, you will not feel anything. So even in those cases, make sure that you take yourself quickly to the nearest hospital, and the hospital will do their best to look after you and to do whatever requires to get you back to your form. So please ensure that we protect ourselves and our loved ones from these injuries, which is avoidable. Please continue watching Camnet TV with us. We'll be bringing you every day new different topics, new different things to discuss with, and every day you will be learning something new. We'll ensure that every day you're learning something new. My name's Dr. Afat Basit Masa. I'm coming from Medical Women's Association of Zambia, MWAS. I'm working from University Teaching Hospital, and I'm working as general surgeon. So please keep watching Camnet, because we'll be bringing you every day different exciting topics that you're going to learn, and you're going to make life better. We make life better together, and we make Zambia better together. So please keep watching.
There you have it. Thank you so much, Dr. Masha, who was just giving us tips on symptoms of burns. That topic, we started with it yesterday, where she was highlighting some of the things that you need to do with regard to burns. And you know, most of the times, like I was telling you yesterday, that we have these myths that, you know, you need to put water, urinate on your hand and stuff like that. But anyway, we are glad that we can have the doctor on set, you know, just to give us those healthy tips. Quite important and very interesting. And we're right about now, we go direct into our money market. So we have the United States dollar, they are buying at 19 kwacha 23 ngwe and selling at 19 kwacha 60 ngwe. We have the Great British Pound selling at 24 kwacha 55 ngwe and selling at 25 kwacha 03 ngwe. We have the euro, they are buying at 21 kwacha 19 ngwe and selling at 21 kwacha 61 ngwe. We have the South African rand, they are buying at 1 kwacha 04 ngwe and selling at 1 kwacha 06 ngwe. Just looking at our main interest, which is the United States dollar, we're seeing that on the selling part, we're running towards the 20 kwacha.
Indeed.
Both. I can just say both, from both the selling and the buying part. Anyway, we hope for the best. Like I said last time, that we hope that we can see it, you know, trending at 15 kwacha. I don't know if I'm being too positive, Patrick. If I say about, you know, it being trending at 15 kwacha, am I being too positive?
So there you see it, there the figures do not lie, and that is a true reflection of how the currency is performing as of this morning. You can see for yourself there, and in case you were not sure, we are going towards a 20 kwacha. It was at 18 and now ranging at 19 kwacha, and that's an indication that the kwacha has been depreciating, and that is not good for the economy. And also talking about that, we are seeing that Zambia's annual inflation rate has continued to increase, and it accelerated to 10.3% in July 2023 from 9.8% in June, making it the highest reading since April 2022. So we are seeing that the upward pressure came from the food in the previous month, primarily cereals, fish, milk, cheese, and eggs and vegetables. So we see that now when we're talking about inflation, it is also going up, because you are seeing that this depreciation of the kwacha, what it does is that it also undermines the local currency, in that the performance of the kwacha tends to push upwards the price of commodities on the market. And when the prices of commodities are increasing on the market, that has also a negative effect pertaining to how inflation responds. So we are seeing that also we are having a double-digit inflation. That is a reflection that things are not at all good, and that's something that we need to pay attention to as a country, if at all we are to work at economic recovery. So that is just how the kwacha is performing. I hope you did manage to familiarize yourself. In case you want to trade, so those are the rates that you'll be trading at when you are exchanging money. So now moving on, Miriam Kaimba, what are we also looking at?
So moving on, Patrick Soko, this morning our topic of discussion, we're going to be looking at harnessing youth skills development in Zambia, and we'll be shortly joined by a guest who's going to help us discuss our topic this morning. But anyway, before we go or jot down direct into our main interview this morning, let's just get to look at some of the stories that made headlines. Quite interesting, yesterday we had the Itezi area member of parliament on set who also highlighted, some of the challenges that he has been, experiencing in his constituency with regard to how some beneficiaries of various empowerment funds program in his constituency, are taking advantage of the constituency development fund. So what beneficiaries are now doing is that money that is meant to, empower everyone in terms of forming cooperative, certain individuals are withdrawing the money without the consent or the knowledge of other group members.
Yeah, so that's an interesting story there, and that points us to the irregularities pertaining to the implementation of the empowerment component under the grants of CDF, because that simply shows that probably people may not even put the money to its intended use, and at the end of the day it will achieve nothing. So that's something that we need to pay attention to. So let's have a look at that story, but also remember that you can equally name and shame those who are not working, especially in terms of individuals, organizations, leaders, civic leaders, everyone. Tell us who is not working, and we start following up with them, and name and shame here on Camnet TV. But now we're going to zoom in the story pertaining to Itezi member of parliament, Mutinta Twambo, who's expressing concern pertaining to how some beneficiaries of the grants under the CDF component in Itezi, some of them have started withdrawing the money to use or to share or to squander, so to say. But the lawmaker says he will not condone any lawlessness pertaining to the implementation of the Constituency Development Fund, CDFs. Let's have a look at this story.
Constituency Development Fund, CDF, is intended to support community-led development projects that are aligned with the national development priorities. It increased from 25.7 million kwacha to 28.3 million kwacha. CDF also has a provision that speaks to the empowerment of citizens. Eligible applicants, many of them community NGOs such as cooperatives and clubs, would qualify for a one-off grant of up to maximum of 40,000 kwacha, according to the 2022 CDF guidelines. This is part of government's vision to enable Zambians to benefit from CDF by involving as many organized groups as possible to source funds from the CDF to start or expand their businesses. But for many cooperatives, things have not worked out as planned. In Itezi constituency in Southern Province, reports of serious misuse of funds have risen. Itezi area member of parliament Twambo Mtita's cautioned beneficiaries from various empowerment funds programs in his constituency to desist from such illegal activities of withdrawing the funds from the bank without the knowledge of other group members.
To caution the beneficiaries of the various empowerment programs in Itezi that they need to use these monies prudently, and they need to coordinate as groups, especially for the grants. At the moment, we have continued to receive reports of individual members belonging to particular women groups that are withdrawing the monies from the banks without the knowledge of the other members of the clubs and the groups. For me, this is tantamount to fraud, and I want to caution such groups that very soon will swing in action. We are working very close with the bank.
Meanwhile, the lawmaker says he has intensified the monitoring of groups in the constituency in order to avoid such cases.
And we are also intensified our monitoring of these groups in the communities. Should we hear any foul play in terms of individual members attempting to get these monies or attempting to personalize these monies and putting the other members of the clubs on the site, we shall going to ensure that some of these clubs will revoke their participation in the CDF, and we also ensure that we put them in the police cells so that they can set an example to the others who feels that these monies that government is giving in terms of the loans and the grants, it's the monies that they can use in a reckless manner.
This will require a lot of information to be shared, especially that there are low levels of public knowledge and access to information about the allocation and usage of CDF, because this makes it difficult for them to facilitate the monitoring, evaluation and sustainability of these projects. Miriam Kaimba, reporting for Camnet TV News.
Which reflect also the power that they have as the government ministers and government officials that are operating. So therefore, it entails that the government has got a role to play in the development of an individual in a nation. This really has been a debatable issue, if a government owes anything to a person and all. But come on, let's be honest. When you have a government in place, the country is supposed to be different from a country that doesn't have a government in place. And everyone that is campaigning, for example, to form a government, they share with you what they want or what they are going to do for you. So, and you vote for them based on what they have told you. So now, if you vote for them based on what they have told you, it means that's your expectation. So if I tell you that what you're expecting from me is not me owing you that, then I think there's a problem there, because in the first place, I had to incite you to vote for me because I told you I'll buy you a tie. And so when you wear a suit and need a tie, I tell you that sometimes don't come to me for a tie, just do other things that are going to give you a tie. I think there's an issue there in the wordings that are being used. Instead, the best way, I think, for me, in my own opinion, is to help people have a certain type of attitude towards life, a certain type of mindset that switches them from really being too expectant to them being the expected.
Thank you so much for still staying tuned to the Camnet TV Breakfast Show. Like I said earlier on, before we went direct into playing those two clips, that will be joined in studio by our guest this morning, who is Mr. Brilliant Nyirenda, who is a governance activist as well as a youth advocate, who is going to help us discuss our topic this morning, where we are looking at harnessing youth skills development in Zambia. Good morning.
Good morning, thank you.
We are glad to have you on set this morning.
I'm grateful to be
Just for the sake of our viewers who are watching, I know you're not new to the screens of Camnet TV, but for the sake of our viewers who are watching you this morning, just tell us a bit about who is Brilliant Nyirenda.
Well, thank you very much. Brilliant Nyirenda is basically just a patriotic Zambian citizen that is so concerned about seeing good governance in place, mindset change, as well as self-development, and has given himself for that particular role in a manner that he can manage. Because I believe that we cannot solve all the problems of the nation, but at least we should be people that are going to be solution finders. If not solution finders, bridges of the solution between solution finders and the problems that we have. So basically, that's me.
Interesting. We have seen that we have quite a number of pronouncements under the CDF and empowerment of young people. First of all, what is needed for us to make sure that, based on the topic that we are looking at, harnessing youth skills development, how can we nurture these skills youths have, or how can we also empower them with the necessary skills as young people?
Well, thank you very much. I think as young people, what we also appreciate basically is to understand the environment that we're in, and then be able to seek the capacity that we don't have, or the capacity that we want to be helped with from government or by government. I think government has been able to put in place certain measures for the young people, but very few young people have been able to take place. Because I remember it took some time in Copper Belt to visit one of the offices that were there, under the local council. And trust me, the turnout was very bad for the people that went there to tap in the skills that the government was actually offering to the local councils. They had CDF and they were sponsoring us with skills. Majority of them wanted the money and not the skill itself. But come on, the whole empowerment scheme, or the whole purpose of empowerment, I think, is to help someone have a muscle for them to stand alone, minus someone that are going to depend on. But basically, majority of the people out there do not really want to be able to get the skill itself. Instead, want to get things that are going to be benefited immediately. So at the end of the day, what should be considered basically is the same people that want to be the beneficiaries. In what way do they want to benefit? And when they benefit, what is it that they want to do? Because the benefiting of whatever is being given to them is not basically just to benefit and keep sitting. It's basically to benefit, be productive enough, and also help other people. Because the whole point of these empowerment schemes that come on board is simply to empower people so that they can be better than they used to be, if not so that they can have a larger base than they used to be. So if people decide not to appreciate that or to have such things in mind, it becomes difficult and purposeless to get the empowerment.
Do you think as Zambia we should put in our curriculum the thought, or as children are in their primary school levels, we start, teaching them various skills that they should be aware of, apart from the theory part of learning, so that immediately, they complete their secondary school, or rather their tertiary, if they do not find any employment, at least they have a skill at the end of the day.
Well, that's a very good question. The bigger picture, I think, for me, is to understand that a person needs to eat and the person needs to wear clothes. There are certain things that are basic in someone, and I think those things, people should be prepared for them even before they actually start facing those. And we have parents, guardians that usually help us with those things, that usually prepare a future for us. But the time comes where everyone gets to face the future themselves. So out there, we ought to put in measures that are going to prepare us for the future, not always having our future prepared for us by the parents, because there's change that comes eventually. Maybe parents die, maybe the guardians die, maybe they lose what was their source of income, and so what happens? Everyone goes down the drainage, whoever was depending on them. But if from the word go, we're able to have these matters inculcated in the young people that are growing up from campus or from school, we shall be able to have indeed a situation where people are given the information, and even how they look at things would be different. Even how they understand how certain opportunities ought to be used, they shall be different. That's why we can't really compare so much with other people, because we are not really moving in that direction. And when we talk about countries, for example, that have been able to develop, we realize that there's a formula which they used for them to develop, and if we're to reach the extent where they reached, we ought to appreciate the formula. If not appreciate the formula, learn something from the formulas of what those countries actually did. And if that is the situation, it simply means that living in the moment is going to help us, because there are things that are relevant and things that are not relevant. There are things that will become relevant and things that will no longer become relevant. And it's up to the person living in such a time to be able to scrutinize and see what is needed, what is relevant at the time, and be able to position themselves and not just hold on to the common way of doing things, because the time will come that other people that are extraordinary will be needed to do certain things. And so those that are going to be extraordinary at the time are the ones that are going to be beneficial to the environment they will belong to at the time, and the reward will go to them. But at the end of the day, everyone wants to feed on food, everyone wants to, for example, dress well, everyone wants to have shelter and everything. So we all need an income, and that income will not just come in a blink of an eye, but by being able to offer something, which something is going to generate that particular income. And therefore, we have to appreciate the environment and prepare also our people for the future, not always preparing the future for our people.
Interesting. Well, our dear viewers, we're watching the Camnet Breakfast Show, and we are discussing issues pertaining to young people. In case you want to join the conversation, you can do so and give us that call, or also leave us a message on our social media platforms, being on our Facebook as well as YouTube. We are streaming the Breakfast Show live, and let's get interacting. Tell us where you're watching us from. And now, moving on the program, I want to also get your perspective. We just played a story where we saw that some cooperatives who are beneficiaries of the Constituency Development Fund CDF component of grants are already trying to squander the money, in that they want to share the money, as opposed to investing the money to the reason why they had lobbied for that fund in the first place, to say we want to do this, then we become productive and be able, so that we can be able to be sustainable as a cooperative. Now we are seeing now people trying to share the money, withdrawing the money without the consent of others. What would be your perspective on that?
Well, I think like I mentioned earlier, when we look at government, really, it operates so much of the social welfare arrangement, and when it does an empowerment on someone, it's with a goal to see the person develop, it's with a goal to see someone that is going to be self-sustainable and also help the other people that are not sustainable. Now, if the government gives you, for example, like the platform that we are talking about now, and people are able to start withdrawing money instead of doing what they intended, because before that money was given to such people, there was a reason why they wanted that particular money, and that reason is what drove government to actually release that money for them to be empowered and be able to look at it after scrutinization. But in a situation where after they have been given and now they change directions, now they want to squander the money, they want to eat the money at the expense of even other people that are not part of the program, I think for me that becomes a very bad thing to do as people, because at the end of the day we want Zambia to develop, and Zambia can only develop if we the citizens develop. So when government helps us citizens with a few things that are going to help us develop, we ought to appreciate them and not really put those things to our selfish interest, forgetting the bigger picture that when we develop, we shall have our families develop, we shall have the people connected to our families also develop, and eventually a nation that is going to develop through its own people. But when such privileges that are given to us by the government are going to be misused in that order, where they give us what is required for us, because look, I believe that those people had written a proposal, and when they wrote a proposal, it moved the people that had the funds and had to release the funds to those people for the proposal to become actualized for the benefit of the people themselves and wherever they came from. But now when they decide to use that money individually, it becomes a problem, because they deprive the benefit of the usage of that money rightly to the public and also to the people that were connected to the people themselves. So at the end of the day, I think we should avoid by all means to misuse what we're given. We should avoid by all means and also appreciate that the fact that government is able to give us something for us to develop as people, we have to appreciate that and not misuse that, because above us there are also other people that want the same help. So if we do not use what we have rightly, we shall not play a role in the creation of development for our country. At the end of the day, we shall deprive other people from developing from what we would have actually used to develop our lives, because there are people that are also waiting to be empowered. Now, if we are lucky and we are empowered, let's use that empowerment correctly and rightly so that we can benefit our lives, benefit the nation, and as we benefit the nation, other people are also going to tap in and benefit, because we would have shared that development that we acquired.
Moving away from Itezitezi constituency, where we have seen that beneficiaries of various empowerment programs, are getting withdrawing the money without the consent of other, beneficiaries there. In your own analysis or own view, do you think the Constituency Development Fund has been able to help citizens in the country, especially the majority youths in Zambia?
Well, I think at the end of the day, what we have to understand and appreciate is that we can have the CDF on board, but only those that have applied for that CDF and those that have been awarded that CDF will have a positive voice to talk about it. In the same way, it's like a road has been made, and those that are using it, for example, the driving cars, they will see the importance of that road. But someone who does not drive, or someone who does not see the importance of that road, they cannot speak good of that road. So at the end of the day, I think it's all about the people that are actually being able to get that CDF or access that CDF, and how they are able to use that CDF to contribute to what is there. Because I've seen before people that have taken the CDF and done projects that I've seen actualize as well as blossom so well. And I've seen people like the one that we just solved, the Itezitezi situation, where people now withdraw the money for their personal use, and they're forgetting what they actually had intended in the first place, which intention was the one that drove the people that gave them the funds to be empowered. So at the end of the day, I think people should take interest firstly in these matters, because it's not a matter of politics to politicize who's going to apply, who's not. From the word go, we ought to live with the mind of doing it, and not really this mindset that we have of being defeated even before we get to the battle. And therefore, when we speak of CDF, I think we should take interest in applying for it. And when we're not considered, for example, that is not the end, because I think it's not everyone that can be, it's like a job interview. You cannot employ everyone that is needed. You can employ rather everyone that is needed, but you cannot employ everyone that applied for that particular job. So the same is true with these opportunities that we get to have. There's a specific number, for example, and that's why we see that these whole things are all about grants, just helping to mitigate the pressure that people get to have, or the problems that we get to have. And if we rightly use what we're given, for example, by the government, I think we shall be able to also pave way for other people to come and benefit from the same. But if we wrongly use that empowerment, we are depriving other people from benefiting from the things that we're actually benefiting. So at the end of the day, national matters are not matters that we should refrain from. If the government makes opportunities available for people that they are leading, let the people take interest and not live in an issue of politics and everything. Government is not a political party, and government is actually a leader for the people that are living in a nation, and therefore people should be comfortable to apply for whatever privileges that the government gets to put on board. People should be very free to involve themselves in matters that government do that affect them, because if they remain silent, tomorrow there will be the people that are going to complain about the actions that the government did because of their silence. So to avoid all those things, let's be engaged. Let's ensure that we're part of the governance system. Let's ensure that when opportunities are made available for us, we're able to apply for them and take interest. You never know. If you become successful from the opportunities, other people also become successful because of you. So let's not politicize what's not supposed to be politicized, or live in politics when it's a time that we have to unite, work together, and be able to cause in development for everyone.
Interesting, but there's also been an argument that you are a youth advocate, and there's been a concern that at the moment we don't have a youth policy. The one we've been using expired, and in fact we are to address issues that affect the youth effectively. We need to make sure that we put in place a policy, and also the Youth Act must be revised to be able to address the challenges of the youth in the moment, because the act that we are using at the moment was revised a long time ago, but we are seeing that this world is changing, and especially in the wake of digital technology advancements.
Well, that's very true. That's why actually in my preamble to a different question, I was able to mention that there are things that are relevant now that were not relevant then, and there are things that will be relevant then that will not be relevant after now. So for that reason, we ought to understand the times that we're living in, and so that we're able to make policies that are deliberate. We're able to make laws that are deliberate to benefit what is happening now for us to cause in a development. Quite all right, we have had a situation where we're moving from maybe a few developments to more developments, but that does not limit development, because it still leaves room for more development. And how are we going to attain that? We ought to understand what we're able to do. And what we're able to do is this. The young people now are people that are full of skills, that are people of talent, full of these different things that they're able to pursue. But the question is, of what contribution is what they have to the nation, all right? And in what are they being supported, for example? Because going forward, I think we should be able to have deliberate policies that are able to say, okay, such contracts, for example, are only for youths. They're the ones that can apply for these things. We ought to have that situation where we can say, okay, this may be just for the women that can apply for this. Because, I mean, we have a major role that we can play as young people, but the competition out there with the major players that have always been there cannot be compared to the young people. And so to avoid all that kind of issue, I think we ought to not just consider the youth and make deliberate policies about them, but also consider the different sections of people in Zambia that make up the population that we count at census. Because we have the women, we have the young people, we have the youth themselves, we have the old men, we have the men themselves and everything, and collectively we have who we call the citizens of Zambia. So what policies are we being deliberate about that to benefit the different classes of the people that we have in Zambia? Because that benefit that people are going to have is the same benefit that will reflect for the nation to be better. It's the same benefit that is going to be good. Because if you empower me today, if I'm reasonable enough and a patriotic citizen, I'll not just sit on the empowerment. I'll also help other people become better people. And that's how the stretch goes on until we have a developed group of people that are collectively contributing to the development of the nation. So at the end of the day, we ought to be deliberate, I think, about the policies that are being made. They ought to be deliberate. Some things should be awarded directly to the youth. Say this is only for the youth. They're the ones that qualify to apply for them, and put in some systems that are going to work in that angle. If we're talking about the women, the same should be able to be appreciated. If we're talking about the men, the same should be able to be appreciated, and eventually other measures now that are going to also be appreciated. But above all, I believe that when we also appreciate industrialization, it's going to help us become more than we can be better, because industrialization is what has really helped almost all the countries that have become better and great nations to reach where they are. Because through industrialization, we shall be able to have a lot of job opportunities for the young people that are able to do something, unlike a situation where we have limitations around. So when we appreciate those skills, we appreciate those talents, we appreciate what they can contribute, and eventually also appreciate industrialization, I think we shall move in a direction that is going to really benefit us, even economically, and eventually we shall have a powerhouse for our nation.
Most of the times, government, has put forth empowerment schemes for young people, talking about through the Ministry of Sports, CEC, and also CDF now, and many various other opportunities. But most of the times we have seen young people still complain, and others at times where they're given loans but they're failing to pay back. Do you think, again, youths, despite complaining that government has not provided these opportunities for them, they are the one to be blamed for themselves? Because basically when they're given grants or loans, they fail to pay back.
Well, I think one of the reasons why we see that as well is for lack of self-discipline. Because if the government empowers me today in form of a loan, I think that's not my money, and I'm just using it to make more money. Like I would go to a bank to boost whatever I'm doing, and then I make a profit and pay back. Now, if I don't pay back, then I'm depriving the progress of that particular bank, for example. Not only the progress of that particular bank, but the progress of other people that would have also borrowed from the same bank. The same is true with the government. When we are given loans, I think we have to make sure that we use those loans correctly for us to generate back what we ought to pay. It's not our money. Let's not be thieves of our own resources. We should be able to work together and also understand that if we frustrate each other's efforts, we cannot develop as a nation. And development as a nation begins with an individual. So if we are disciplined enough as individuals, you borrow what is not yours, take it back after you have used it for the purpose that you had borrowed it for. The small things are the ones that make a difference. There will never be a time that everything is just going to blossom at once. Instead, it's the small things that are going to be making a difference. That's why you realize that even a building, all you need to do to break a building, you can just remove 2 or 3 blocks from there and the whole building is going to collapse. So the same behaviors that we get to have, thinking we're being clever and everything by taking advantage of government, of other people that are helping us and everything, I think it's not going to help us. Instead, let's ensure that when we get loans, when we get those schemes of empowerment, they are rightly put to use for us to ensure that we get the intention of those things, and at the end of the day, appreciate development. Because if we're not doing that, we're depriving other people from benefiting from what we benefited from. Shifting is important, and the only way we get to shift is by ensuring that we're moving progressively, and progressively, when others help us to move progressively, we ought to appreciate the help. When they loan us to progress more, we ought to pay back. So that the same help they gave us as a government is the same help they'll give other people to also benefit, because citizens have to be helped, and the citizens also have to help the government that is helping them. It's a twofold arrangement, and when we appreciate it, at the end of the day, we shall have something to really appreciate every day.
Interesting. Well, as we wind up our conversation, I also wanted to tap into your perspective pertaining to the topical issue in the country that is involving junkies. And these are mostly young people. So they are supposed to be young people who are supposed to be productive, engaging, going to school, engaging in farming activities and other various activities. But however, to the contrary, we are seeing that these young people are the ones now abusing substance and alcohol. So now, if we are to be productive as a country, which is largely dominated by young people, what have you identified as an individual as being the attributing factor to this problem we are facing in almost each and every community? And what are some of the intervention we can prescribe to address this vice?
Well, thank you very much. I think firstly, I have an issue with the neglection that we have put on those people, because really, when we're counting census, we count certain individuals, and if we count everyone to create a certain number that is going to define our population as a nation, then everyone of that number deserves the help that we're able to give them. But the major problem is that among ourselves, we are leaving those people out. We're neglecting those people. And I think out there we have a lot of advocates that are about mindset change, that are motivational speakers, that are doing so much for the nation. But the question is, those people that really need that help, what are we doing about it? Because you go in the streets, you find these people are there. You go in bridges, for example, the one at Mandahi or the one that is just at Levy, you realize that those people are there. And we know the places where these people are found, but what is it that we've done for those particular people? I think at the end of the day, we don't need to judge each other. Instead, we need to be able to work together and also help these people. What these people need is help. Not only help, they need psychological help, they need financial help, economic health, and mental help as well. Because at the end of the day, everyone has got a different story. There was a time that I and my team went on the street and made a donation to those people, and we shared some stories, and you realize that a lot of people that are there, not everyone intended to actually go on the street, but some of them, it was a challenge of life that they had no one to run to. But when you just look at them from a different angle and distance, you'll be able to pass on a judgment without knowing what really took place for them to find themselves on the streets. No one would want to be poor. Everyone wants to be successful, but in wanting to be successful, different vices come on board as challenges, and very few people are able to make it through those particular challenges. So for me, I think what those people need firstly is mentorship. What those people need is a shelter. What those people need is clothing. What those people need is food. And eventually in the long run, we shall have that mentorship sure thing. If we say no to that, then we're saying all those things don't work out. But if we believe that mentorship works out, if we believe that psychological help works out, if we believe that counseling works out, if we believe that opportunities can be given to them, then we can work together, hold hands, and ensure that the people that are being judged, the people that are being neglected because we think they are junkies, because we think they can never make it in life, because we think they are thieves and everything, eventually we can change that status and be able to help. We have seen people that were junkies, for lack of better terms, that have been able to transform, and now they are preaching about how they can change, and they're also helping other people change. So if a person, one person can be able to transform, can be able to change, I think then every other person, it is possible for them to change as well. And all of us have got a certain story behind our glory. And for them, that would be their story to help them attain their glory. Thank you.
Quite interesting. Anyway, I almost said, what are your concluding remarks? But still, I'll ask that question. What are some of your concluding remarks, and well, some of the message that you would want to send both to the government and the youths in the country?
Well, thank you very much. I think my concluding remarks is just an appeal to those people that are applying for the empowerment for the CDF, and when they are given, they use that money for something else. I think you're depriving not only your own self-development, but also the development of your families, of the nation, and everyone connected to it, because your status today is what reflects to the country's status, and your status tomorrow will depend on your status today. So be very sure and be intentional about using that money wisely, about using that empowerment wisely, because when you don't use that empowerment wisely, you're not only depriving yourself but also other people. Secondly, to the fellow young people there, to the youth out there, do not really have to be blamers. You have to be shapers of the things that happen on a daily basis. Be engaged in national matters. Do not neglect yourself or refrain yourself from passing on a word or being able to attach a word or a voice to the things that are happening, because if you do not talk about it, it still affects you. And if it is affecting you, you ought to speak out, you ought to appreciate. And at the end of the day, you have to understand that government is there for the people. The people are there for government. From the people, government is formed. From government, people are led. So these two work together, and therefore they ought to appreciate and supplement each other's efforts. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Indeed, that was a very lovely discussion. We hope that you could join us sometime soon. We'll sure extend that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, exactly. We were joined in studio by brilliant Nyirenda, who is the governors and youth advocates at the same time. But right about now, let's get to play a story done by one of our reporter, Vincent, who did a story where farmers in Lusaka district have rejected the Comprehensive Agriculture Support Program, CASIP, that government intends to introduce.
The government of the Republic of Zambia began the Farmer Input Support Program in 2002, giving smallholder farmers a limited amount of commercial maize seed and organic fertilizer. This program was expanded in 2015-2016 season to cover groundnuts, orange maize, corn beans, and cotton seed. However, on 29th July 2023, Agriculture Minister Ruben Mtolo Piri announced that government intends to phase out this program to replace it with affordable loans for farmers.
Farmers, etc., deliberately on their own going to a bank. We would like to bring sanity in FISIP. It will run side by side with a commercial venture, very low interest rates almost running as with CEC or even less. And with time, we want that to be more than the FISIP arrangement, because it has proved that it is not really benefiting the country in terms of production. It has helped with household food security, but it has not helped with the national food security. The productivity is low, and there's a lot of cheating and theft.
This development has not been received well among some farmers.
Climate change ifintu tafirenda kuni walisa rima kasubaka balisha vyalokota vyauma so tulekta pi kubiteko bwesu kutwafuirishe nemisombwere tayari bwino fertilizer yashire pareti so twashire bika fertilizer datwabika fertilizer kasubaka bala yalisa umina parapera so busombo shinga unomo akatatu akweto bwino ikweliste akulimina kwazi msesule pareti atireza ngokusombo shibule bwerera kanshi so tulelomba kuma president wetu kuti ino vatisaka mane vatupereko kwangu fertilizer padunga twanima kwangu shirembuto shesu tunaisa mukwata kusombolo okusuma nambanga vatuletera reti njusi fete fyaonaika disi ye vatuletera mukundo December January matalata yali bwino so tulelomba uno mwaka vatuletera kwa mukundo fertilizer kwangu ta fertilizer kona disi ye tayako etama twale chitanga twabika di tuisa mkubika top dressing isasanga tanga naya wati tetwabika modi so tulelomba ko batufaire ko fertilizer ikwetia maka batukwete concentration achimbia chonderanga ni pali cassava production cassava irebola so batuafurisha ko tulechitashani kumuti wa buswa tulechitanga twalima tute batapale ko tulesomba tulesanga tutenzi naibona nombeyo yalonde ni bitikala flo kwanisha musango na climate change because tukala batimfula ilero kabwino tulesombola tukakweshengero ero chikale shupe mfula ya kangulo nomba tukala chitashani mukwesha lomi.
Under FISIP, the government distributes subsidized agricultural inputs to small-scale producers of the staple food crop maize. With climate change at play, which may affect their harvest, farmers remain optimistic that government will listen to their cries before, just like Zambia, they too default to repay their loans. Vincent Piri for Camnet TV News in Lusaka.
So those are the concerns from the farmers. They are quite interesting. They did, highlight all the issues talking about starting with fertilizer and stuff like that.
Yeah, indeed. Truly, the Farmers Input Support Program, there's been concern from the government that it hasn't been able to achieve most of its targets, in that farmers are still remaining in the same bracket years after the implementation of the program. And there has been concern that the FISIP should be revised, and the government is revising it into the Comprehensive Agriculture Support Program, CASIP, and it will run, first of all, with two double components, where we have a loan arrangement as well as that those who get free inputs under the FISIP, just like it is being done under the FISIP. However, there has been concern that farmers may not be able to manage the loan arrangement, given that sometimes we have seen unpredictable weather conditions that may undermine the productivity of our farmers. However, this is a debate because the government says that this will be implemented in a phased approached manner. So I think people do not need to panic, given that also the government is taking into consideration various aspects and that it won't be stopped abruptly. However, also that is the positive aspect. However, we're also looking at how do we guarantee national food security at household level? How do we make sure that these people still venture into agriculture and be able to sustain themselves? Because we still see that FISIP has also helped individual families in terms of being at household level to be able to have sufficient food for themselves and also contribute towards the national food basket. So when we are looking at those aspects, we need to make sure that we strike a balance so that we do not, at the end of the day, undertake measures that may undermine our productivity as a country. So we just hope that the Minister of Agriculture, Mr. Mtoropiri, just like he explained, that this project will be implemented in a phased approach, that some farmers that may be qualifying under the loan scheme will be put there. But it was also categorical to state that they are also looking at the model of flexible loans in terms of interest. So the interest rates won't be something that will be deterrent to the farmers. But we also have to learn from history. Some of us have been told about the history surrounding the Lima Bank, which was for farmers back in the days. So now what led to the demise of the Lima Bank? So we need to see and identify those problems that led to the collapsing of that bank, and see how do we move forward in terms of us going ahead. We have also seen that in Zambia a lot of programs are started, but they eventually fail because they die natural deaths. I remember that we had discussions pertaining to the coming up of the Women's Bank in this country, and the non-governmental gender organizations coordinating council, NGOCC, was among organizations that were spearheading the formation of the Women's Bank. But however, up to now, even the Patriotic Front is no longer in office. We don't know where that issue of coming up with a Women's Bank ended. Now we also saw that the National Action for Quality Education, NACES, was also advocating for the formation of a teachers' bank. Now, for me, it's just bank. I think it sounds a little bit shallow. And that unless we make it an education bank.
Education bank. They said because teachers can get loans.
Why should only teachers? The teachers are the only people who work for schools. They are also administrators in these schools. They are also accountants in these schools. They are also human resource personnel in these schools. So now, if you make a bank specifically for teachers, don't you think it also takes you to say, so if me, I'm an accountant, I work for a school, it means I shouldn't be able to access the bank, the loan.
I get your point.
You're getting the point. So for me, if you say an education bank, it means that lecturers, teachers, everyone who is in the education sector should be able to benefit from such a bank. But it is also a question of how we make it viable and how we run it as sustainably. That's another question. But again, we're going to see a doctor's bank. Do we need a doctor's bank? Should it come? Or should it be viable? We're going to advocate for a journalist bank. We need a journalist bank, and we should have that bank.
I think we should. I will talk on my part. We need a journalist bank. We shall surely advocate for that.
I hope you understand what I mean.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
But you can come up with a bank, for example, for government or public workers.
Public workers, yeah.
You also do a bank for. It's just some of this provision is just about engaging these banks. It's about developing a product that suits you as a sector.
And I think government has that capability of engaging with these private banks and public banks to ensure that they can come up with a mechanism that can be best for both those in civil service and the private sector.
Yeah, so something like that. So for me, I'll be vouching that we should have a journalist bank.
But the other concern that you raised, that most of the time we saw they were advocating for a women's bank, but it has not materialized. One thing I'll tell you is that when with the change of government, Patrick Soko, you need to understand that each and every administration, if they come into power, they come with their own ideologies, they come with their own manifestos. So most of the times, it's rare that we see, government institution carrying on the projects left by other administration.
You bring up a good
exactly.
argument.
But, and when you talk about even certain roads, we were told that certain roads which were at 45% will not be, projects which were at 45% will not be completed first, but only those who were at 85. So basically that tells you that, you know, certain programs are not carried forth because of change of administration and so on.
So you bring a good argument, but now that's where development lags in Africa, in countries like Zambia.
Yeah.
Because you see, each and every government wants to do their own things and discontinue some of the certain programs. For me, the key lies in the aspect of us, for example, developing solutions such as you know, when political parties are forming their political party manifestos, we have to look at this issue critically. They have to align their manifestos to the, let's say, for example, the national development plan of the country. They also have to align their manifestos to the Vision 2030 framework. They have to align their manifestos to the Agenda 2063 for the African Union. They have to align their manifestos to what some of the laws prescribed pertaining to the SADC region. So that whatever the case, Miriam Kaimba, we should be in the same trajectory in terms of achieving the long-term goals. Do you know what is Zambia's thrust by 2030? We are just talking about becoming a prosperous middle-income country. But what do you want to see Zambia look like? What do you want the Zambian citizens to be like at the individual basis in terms of empowerment and development? What do we want to see Zambians in terms of Zambia in terms of infrastructure? What do you want to see when it comes to infrastructure? What do you want to see in terms of community development? So when we are talking about the Vision 2030, I think we should be clear as a country to say we should be holding such endeavors where we agree and say this is where we want to take our country, and the journey begins now. It does not matter which political party comes into office, but others should just be coming and feeding into how creative they can be to realize the long-term objectivity of this country. So because at the end of the day, you discover that every 5 minutes we renew, we go to the elections, we start afresh. Do you expect to see development?
No. because
I can even tell you, for example, that sometimes the money we spend just towards the elections is a lot for us to do a lot of development. I can guarantee you that you would find a ballot paper in each and every ward where even a single development has been taken, but you'd find a ballot paper will reach. Regardless of the situation, a ballot paper will reach that place. Every material that ECZ is given to each ward, to your constituents or branch, that material will reach. And you can imagine how much it costs to transport that and to print those materials.
And you know, this should be a concern. You know, we need to sit down as a country and reflect where we are going wrong.
Yes.
Because there's basically no way. Why would you want ballot papers to reach in far-fetched areas, especially the rural areas where you have never taken any single type of development? But they reach.
Yes, so
we know that it is their right to vote, but it is also their right to ensure that development is taken.
So they are voting. So we have that, just like the way we take ballot papers in each and every one. We should make sure that development reaches. But for now, there is a little bit of hope because of the CDF. Because the CDF that has been increased gives an opportunity for these localities to develop. If at all we are using the resources according to the state papers, because 28.3 million kwacha is quite a huge sum of money. So we are likely to see activity in everyone. So for me, that is hope. That's where we are starting from. But however, you know, this government has started this CDF. Another government may come and say, we don't want this CDF. But where are we going to take this country? You understand? That's what I'm saying, to say, when we are also agreeing on some of these things, we need to make sure that we say, okay, where do we want to see ourselves? But I'm sure that everybody else would want to see us.
But I think this should be a policy where each and every political party that put across their manifesto to the people like you said, it should be aligned with the country's policy.
Yes.
That shouldn't move away. Not no, me if I come, I'm going to create jobs. It should be there. Yes, it should. So, yes, we know that you have to create jobs. It should be there. You have to, build schools and health facility. It should be there.
So you
need to empower the people. It should be there. So that we do not go back again.
Exactly. We start afresh.
And we're remaining with 7 years to reach 2030.
So we have quite a number of a lot of goals that we need to achieve. Let me just say, for example, the first three, we need to address issues pertaining to poverty. We have to end hunger by 2030. We have to ensure good quality health by 2030.
Water.
We have to make sure that we have quality education and inclusive education by 2030. We need to ensure that we have access to water and sanitation. We need to steer gender equality. We need to foster partnerships and in the wake of climate change. All these goals need to be achieved by the year 2030. Now, if we are not putting in place progressive measures, it becomes difficult because those goals, Miriam Kaimba, they are progressive in that they help us to create an equal society in terms of in various aspects. So we need to make sure that we are eyes on the ball pertaining to attaining the sustainable development goals. But right about now, let's also look at this other story where the stakeholders are calling for effective strategies that will address untimely disposal of court cases, court infrastructure and financial dependency of the judiciary. Community Action Against Corruption Chief Executive Officer Brighton Tembo says there is a need to expand judiciary infrastructure as the current court buildings were built to cater for a population of less than 5 million people, which is not the case now. Meanwhile, Chapter 1 Foundation Executive Director Linda Kasonde hopes the government will soon address the challenges surrounding the country's judicial system. Let's have a look at this story.
Judiciary is among the three arms of government, others being the executive and the legislature. Some of the functions of the judiciary include, but not limited to, administration of justice through resolving disputes between individuals or between an individual and the state, interpreting the constitution and the laws of Zambia, promoting the rule of law and protecting human rights. But with increased Zambia's population, court cases linger like forgotten whispers, echoing through cobweb chambers, coupled with cases that take longer to be disposed of to the expectation of those accused. In this land where patience is tasted, justice seekers find themselves trapped in a web of delays, their rights left to fade like untended gardens. The case in point is that of former ZAF commander Eric Chimese, whose case took over 4 years of trial for it to be concluded. Community Action Against Corruption Chief Executive Officer Brighton Tembo underscores the need to improve infrastructure under the judiciary as the capacity does not match up to the country's population.
In order to have speed cases under the judiciary, one, we have to expand the infrastructure, because if you look at the court infrastructure in Zambia, they were designed for a population of less than 5 million people, and today we are over 20 million. We are close to 20 million people. So the judiciary at this rate cannot handle all the volume of cases going to the judiciary. So we have to expand the judiciary. Then the process of graduating the judges into magistrate court judges, high court judges and supreme court judges, including the constitutional court, must also be simplified so that these people can graduate without the red tape which is already there, because it takes time for people to graduate into judges.
Meanwhile, Chapter 1 Foundation Executive Director Linda Kasonde hopes the government will soon address the challenges surrounding the country's judicial system.
Delays in the administration of justice has long been a problem that has plagued the judiciary in Zambia for many years. This is in large part due to the heavy caseload on judges and magistrates. However, Chapter 1 is pleased to note the recent initiative by LAS and the judiciary to tackle this problem by addressing delayed judgments and rulings through a special bar bench committee. We hope to see positive results very soon.
In the end, the lack of speedy court case disposal in Zambia cast a grim shadow over the ideals of justice and judicial independence. A nation's true character is revealed in the way it administers justice, swift and impartial. But does delayed justice system truly serve its people, and can true judicial independence thrive amidst such delays? Nelson Zulu for Camnet News, Lusaka.
Indeed, we hope that with the new reforms at the judiciary, we'll be able to see a speed in ensuring that judgments are disposed of before the courts of law, and also cases, the speed recovery of cases, the speed handling of cases. We did see previously, so-called, I must mention that I have covered a case that took 5 years before court, and judgment was passed in that year 5. Yeah, it takes such time, such long.
It took your entire lifespan at Camnet TV, ever since you have been at Camnet
Exactly.
TV.
It took my entire lifespan at Camnet TV. My entire lifespan.
And it's
good. It's so funny.
And it's good that you were here and you saw the case. You saw the case up to the end.
And I was young. I grew. Anyway, let me not say much.
I wanted to say you are now.
Yeah, I was young and I grew, but you have to understand that this has been a concern, because most of the times when cases are delayed before the courts of law, it's not only the delayment of cases, but you also have to look at the resources that one pays. In ensuring that they attend court sessions all the time, and also the monies that are being paid to their advocates as well.
They say justice delayed is justice denied, hence we continue to emphasize the need to make sure that the third arm of government, which is the judiciary, which is part of the other 3 arms of government, is also up to speed, and especially pertaining to infrastructure matters bordering on various issues that can enable it, especially in the work of digital technology. How can the judiciary adjust? It's like we have seen the adjustment pertaining to the legislature and also the executive that has continued to evolve, especially under the Smart Zambia initiative. So how can the Zambia's judiciary fall into that bracket to make sure that it is not left behind? Because some of the issues they need, for instance, people to be able to file cases just electronically. You do not need to go physically to court. You just make your submissions, and everything is done electronically. You don't have to spend. And when you go to the courts when it is due. So you discover you have to always.
But the thing is that when you go in these most offices, you find physical files, basically very old, in bulk, Patrick. And then again, you have to realize that we had certain instances where we were told in one particular case before court that a document had gone missing. Apparently, when the witness was being now questioned during cross-examination by the defense counsel, she was told, I don't know, maybe they are rats. Anyway, that's the story.
Let's have a look at where the Zambia Medicines and Medical Supplies Agency, ZAMSA, says shortages of essential medicines in health facilities will be a thing of the past due to investment in local medical suppliers. And let's have a look what story you have me there.
Yes, and here we have a story where Home of Joy Foundation, in collaboration with the Zambia Police Service and the Drug Enforcement Commission, DEC, has carried out a sensitization exercise on drug abuse and HIV/AIDS in Lusaka's Chawama and Misisi compound. Speaking on the sideline of the exercise, Foundation President Alawe, Mr. Banda says the abuse of drugs, especially in compounds, continue to increase. Contraction of HIV and AIDS among youth, hence the move for the exercise. Let's get to play those 2 stories.
The dim light of health facilities, essential medicines paint a canvas of resilience as they are the cornerstone of care. According to the United Nations Sustainable Goal number 3 on good health and well-being, improved healthcare services and availability of medicines inclusive top the Agenda 2030. In recent months, the UPND administration had been under fire for drug shortages, with the national drug stock levels having stood at 53.1%, a threshold below the World Health Organization target of 70% and 80% due to a messy supply chain in the pharmaceutical industry, costing the state millions of kwacha. But Pharmaceutical Society of Zambia President Kennedy Saini says there is a need to strengthen the capacity of local manufacturers of medicines for the country to be medicine secure.
Mostly above 80% of the medicines we consume are sourced from abroad, mostly from India. And so it's important for us to work on and improve local pharmaceutical manufacturing. And there's a lot that has happened in the past, where we have now worked as a country on what we call local pharmaceutical manufacturing strategy.
Meanwhile, Zambia Medicines and Medical Supplies Agency ZAMSA Public Relations Officer Gift Kalaba says the agency is empowering capacity with local medicine manufacturers.
Pharmaceutical sector or industry, we have a number of local citizen suppliers we are working with, but we want more, so that even as ZAMSA is trying to procure, store and distribute these essential medicines to communities, we have a number of suppliers whom we can procure from locally, and so that we also give back to the community, because when we procure from citizen suppliers, it means that we are keeping the money within the country. We do not need to take the money elsewhere, and that speaks to us being part of transforming this country's economy.
Mr. Kalawa also underscores the need to build financial muscles among the local suppliers for their manufacturing of drugs.
A step ahead to engage the banks, so we are working with our banks, local banks, to ensure that we build capacity of our local or citizen suppliers, and when we need they need some financing tools, the banks are there to also help them, so that they work together. So it's a concerted effort, which ZAMSA and a step which ZAMSA has taken to ensure that we have a stable supply of these medicines.
In the embrace of local production, essential medicines become more than just remedies. They symbolize self-reliance and an embodiment of a nation's commitment to the wellness of its people, a pledge etched in every label, every dose, and every recovered smile. Nelson Zulu for Camnet News, Lusaka.
According to the Zambia Population-Based HIV/AIDS Impact Assessment 2021 Zambia report, incidence of HIV among adults aged 15 and above in Zambia was 0.31%, which corresponds to approximately 28,000 new cases of HIV per year among adults. The country has, however, recorded significant reduction in HIV/AIDS infections over the years among women and men, from 17.8% and 12.9% to 15.1% and 11.3% respectively. Despite these achievements, there has been notable increase in HIV prevalence among urban young men over the past 12 years, contrasting declining trends among young women in both urban and rural populations. This has been attributed to, among other factors, such as drug and alcohol abuse, which make the group engage in risky behaviors, as a result contracting HIV/AIDS. In addressing this interlinkedness among drug abuse, HIV/AIDS and gender-based violence, the Zambia Police Service and Drug Enforcement Commission (DEC) in Lusaka have joined hands with Home of Joy Foundation to sensitize youths and children on the scourge. DEC Education and Counseling Officer Alita Banda says the exercise is aimed at bringing the services of the Commission to the community, as it is usually viewed in an unfriendly manner.
The effects that drug abuse has on the community, such as this one, and then also because people abuse so much drugs, it also leads to HIV, because people, those that are high on drugs, they end up having unprotected sex, which can end up having them affected, get infections such as HIV, as well as STIs. Open up our doors to let people know, to say we are here to offer a free service that everyone and each one can access without having any difficulties or without them being arrested.
Zambia Police Service Lusaka Central Victim Support Unit Inspector Chiana Chobe said sensitization on drug abuse reduces risky behaviors in contracting HIV/AIDS and occurrence of gender-based violence in society.
Curbing gender-based violence, because people will be enlightened, will be taught on what the drugs, abuse of drugs can do in amplifying gender-based violence. Because when, let's say in a household, a man abuses alcohol, which is also a drug, he tends to start abusing the wife, the children. Henceforth, the gender-based violence goes up.
Meanwhile, Home of Joy Foundation President Alwen Banda says the organization is aiming to target as many youths as possible, especially in compounds which are prone to drug abuse.
Our target is to reach every youth from 0 to at least 45 years in the Mrs. compound, at least 5,000 people. If we can reach that number, then we are able to go and reduce.
care about the HIV, but they care more about the pregnancy. So you find that there's one thing which they can fear, which is the pregnancy, but not the HIV. HIV is the transmitted disease which can easily transfer from one person to another through sex or any cuts if you become in contact. So that's how it is.
For Camnet News, Afias Kaptula, Lusaka.
Indeed, we have seen that the abuse of drug substance abuse and various abuse like alcohol abuse has also contributed to the increase in abuse cases in the compounds, especially like we heard from the officer there who was saying, most of the times you'll find that the man in the house abuses alcohol and other substance abuse like marijuana and other. There's a drug that I covered last time. It's called Volo. Yeah, people would abuse that, and in turn they will get to abuse their spouse or their relatives. So this is now where, as the police service continue to increase, such high numbers of abuse in society. But we are glad that we have seen various stakeholders that have continued to come on board and ensure that they carry out this sensitization and also talk about the dangers of this abuse.
You are right, Miriam Kayemba, and we hope that we address those pertinent issues. We are coming to the dying minutes of our program. We are ending, but before we do that, we just have to update you of what happened yesterday, because we saw Nigeria being eliminated from the Women's World Cup. Sad enough, indeed, that encounter went up to the penalty shootout. However, we saw that we are still waiting for Morocco, if at all it will be that team to make that surprise. So the games were like that. In the round of 16, we had Switzerland against Spain, and Spain managed to win by 5-1, and Japan managed to win by 3-1 against Norway, and we had Netherlands up against South Africa, and they won that match by 2-0, and we had Sweden up against the United States. This one ended 0-0, and Sweden ended up winning during the penalties. And let's see, we had England up against Nigeria, and this was also an interesting encounter. We saw that our own fellow Africans there were eliminated. England had the red card, but they still managed to take it to the penalty shootouts, and Nigeria managed only to score 2 goals during the penalty shootouts. They only managed to score 2, and England scored 4, and they won that through the penalty shootouts. Hard luck for Nigeria, but they had a chance to win it because England started by missing that penalty, and that gave an opportunity to Nigeria, but they couldn't take advantage of that. Their penalty shootout was very poor. We had Austria up against Denmark, and this one also ended in favor of Austria by 2-0. And today, this is where we also have to wait for the fate of Morocco. We are going to see Colombia up against Jamaica today, and we also have France up against Morocco. We hope that Morocco will do us a favor by beating that other team. So those are the teams that have progressed to the quarterfinal: Spain, Netherlands, Japan, Sweden, and England, as well as Australia, waiting for winners in the other group. It can be either Jamaica or Colombia. Then it can also be France or Morocco. So those are the teams, the games that are to be played today for the World Cup for women. And interesting enough, we are still watching a little bit of action. And sad enough, our team was eliminated in the first round. But however, they came here celebrated after winning the last game of the tournament they played.
I think that was good. At least we saw some win. You just can't go out like that.
Yeah, that's at least we have some records. We have scored goals. That's a part of the records that will stand even when we won't be here. People say the Zambia national team for women that was there in the year 2023 managed to score 3 goals at the World Cup. So that is a record that will be there even long enough when
it's a record set
some
for
of us are not
ourselves.
here.
I told you last time that we need to stay positive. You were doubting, but I stayed positive.
Yeah, we are staying positive. So remember to keep it positive. And this is where we have to call it a day on the Camnet Breakfast Show. But do remember to also join me for the People's Verdict at 17 hours. And we have an interesting guest. That make sure that you also contribute on that program, Miriam Kaimba.
Exactly, this is where we come to the end of our program this morning. You know, I hate saying that this is where, you know, I love interacting with our audience there. But anyway, we will make sure that, you know, tomorrow we come as early as possible, as usual, on this set to ensure that we bring you but the best in terms of what is happening in our country. For me, Miriam Kaimba and Patrick Soko, for now, it's bye-bye and stay blessed.